right, so thank you, Anne. Next up, we have Mr. Sebastian Mueller. He's from MING Labs. And Sebastian is a business leader, advisor and investor in early stage startups, as well as an author and speaker on topics around corporate innovation, digital transformation, future of work, and the societal impact of technology. He has worked with digital innovation and transformation units from some of the most reputable companies, such as BASF, BMW, BOSCH, and Schneider Electric. So let's welcome Mr. Sebastian Mueller.
All right. Good morning. Good to see the theater pretty full. I remember when we first had the talks about this conference a couple of months ago. We were very excited to join. And yeah, the future of work is the theme that really moves a lot of the things that we do. I mean, just briefly background-wise, I think I was introduced very well. As MING Labs, so you know from which perspective I'm speaking. We are a company focusing on digital innovation, on transformation of corporations. We also work with fast growth startups. We've existed now for 7 years, started in Shanghai, completely out of our comfort zone in a very different environment, extended to Singapore, to Berlin, Munich, New York, working globally with our clients. And essentially what I'd like to share with you today is the insights that I've gained from that work in practical application, and what I see is going to be the future of companies, the future of value chains, really the future of how the economy is going to be organized. And if you're only going to take away one thing today, I want to give you a mental model to think about all of this. And that model is friction. Because friction shapes our organizations today. It is the reason why they are the way they are. It is the reason for how the future is going to play out. It is a very central key element. What is friction? Friction, essentially, I mean, it's a concept that I obviously borrowed from physics. Yeah? When objects move against each other, friction is a loss of energy. It is essentially a tax that is removing energy from a system for something that is not actually valuable in the transaction itself. So we can apply that also, of course, to an economic context. Friction in itself, it constitutes a barrier, and friction can take many forms. So in a marketplace, you have, for example, friction in coordination. You want to purchase a good or a service, you have the money, somebody else has to offer, but before you actually go ahead and do that, you have to evaluate, you have to coordinate, you have to find somebody who will do exactly what you want, or maybe make a compromise. All of that is friction. Friction is making contracts. Friction takes many different forms. And in the end, it is making the things that you want to do less efficient. It is taking away efficiency from the system, and it is preventing scale in micro activities. That's why traditionally, a lot of the things that we have now in place, like contracts, which are governed by lawyers and banks, I mean, this all plays back to the fundamental concept of trust, needed to be put in place for even the most menial tasks, right? Physical artifacts are friction because they don't scale. If you have all the paper in your office, let's say back in the 70s, in the 80s, you cannot have a remote worker in Singapore doing a job for your company in London because he does not have access to the relevant information. Right? Coordination with people is friction. You have to tell somebody what you want, and it's probably going to take a while for other people to understand what you actually want. And if you want the same job done by another person, you have to explain to them again. Coordination is friction. And all of these things are extremely taxing. And that's why we actually only go to the marketplace if we think about larger transactions. If I have something that has to be done on a daily basis, like for us, I need UX designers. So oftentimes I will rather hire a person than actually go out and find somebody to do it on a job-by-job basis, because it's more efficient, right? Scale in jobs, aggregating jobs, giving people a position that is clearly understood and contracted for the long term removes that friction and makes things more scalable. So friction impedes scale. Everybody's talking about scaling, right? Especially in entrepreneurship, it's always about, okay, I have an idea, I have a product, I need to scale, I need to grow quickly. And actually hiring, it's not that great for scaling. You would like to scale your business without adding more people. That would be the best. Personally, as a business leader, I always fret over hiring. I hate it. I always hate it. I have to go through hundreds of CVs. We have to make sure they have the skills. We have to make sure they fit the culture. Especially the latter part is extremely painful. And then, of course, in our business, which is very volatile, sometimes our projects are 3 to 4 months. My frame of reference is not that long. Every decision to actually hire a person is very, very painful. And so I would like to avoid that at all costs. I don't want to scale by hiring. I want to scale by selling more and then finding a way to deliver without hiring. And so traditionally, our organizations really look like this, right? We have a bunch of people. This could be different departments, different offices, but essentially you have some points of coordination. There's always some people in maybe managerial roles who coordinate between the different offices or the different functions. You have physical documents, everybody's contracted. And all of this is because it would be more expensive to go to the marketplace and find somebody every single time. But this is changing very rapidly. And another thing why this is actually very inefficient is that companies scale sublinearly. There's a lot of research into this where it actually turns out scaling up, especially in terms of manpower, combining businesses, M&A, it's not actually efficient. It reduces efficiency. Small companies, that small unit of work that doesn't need so much overhead, that is the most efficient thing you can find. So personally, this is a bit of our story. Yeah? MING Labs started in 2011 in Shanghai. This is a picture from our Shanghai office, which at that time was the only office in 2013. How many people do we have here? 9 people. Today we're 65 full-time, but back then we were 9 people, and those were not full-time. Out of these, actually only 5 people were employed with us. In our industry, it's very, very normal already to work with freelancers on a part-time basis, on a contract basis. Today, this is our company in 2017, a little snapshot of the team in Berlin. We still run by the same paradigm that many of our client organizations could never imagine. Very central revenue-producing functions that we need, such as development, such as design, are actually not always at the very core of our company. We don't have all of them full-time. We have a large network that allows us, as a company of 65 people, to actually be a force of over 500 people, because we have partners, we have freelancers. We can compete with the world's largest organizations, such as Accenture, with a core of less than 100, because we understood that it is completely unnecessary to hire people full-time, and what is helping us to do this is technology. Our core is much, much smaller than it would have had to be 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because technology removed the friction in many places, right? Cloud technologies made our work scalable. We are hiring people in remote places. We have people working with us from Australia, from New Zealand, from South Africa, from America, without having to be there, because friction of coordination and also of physical artifacts was removed by digitizing, by moving things to the cloud, by moving communications into Slack, into different chat applications. That enabled us to do the same job that a few years ago would have required many more people in overhead and would have had to be all on-site much more efficiently. And we're really only getting started with this. Technology right now, and these are a few of the themes I'm sure that are also going to come up over the next 2 days, is in development, not yet ready for prime time, but going to be soon, that will remove much, much more of this. When we talk about smart contracts, right now we have trillion-dollar industries combined that are only looking after facilitating trust. Banks, lawyers, regulators, everybody is looking after facilitating trust between parties who don't know each other, and they are needed as intermediaries to make sure that everybody can trust that a transaction is going to happen as agreed. Once we have sufficiently developed smart contracts, as we see the future right now, a lot of that is going to go away. Because when you have everything written in code, transparent for both parties to see, you do not need a lawyer to actually tell you what are your rights. How can you now sue that person that didn't pay you? Because everything is automated. Once you did your job, green light, payment goes through, there is no human interference, so trust does not need to be facilitated. It's a trustless system, friction removed. with the cloud, I mean, that is already in place in so many places. Still a lot of enterprises think, oh, I have to have everything on premise. They work through very restrictive systems, and this impedes their work. And I see how their employees sometimes cannot even work on the road. Yeah, and these are sales guys who have to be on the road, but in the end, they always end up, oh, no, I have to go to the local office now. I have to go here now because I have to download documents. They have no access on the road. It's ridiculous. It impedes scale. It impedes efficiency. So all of this is going to go away. And then, of course, artificial intelligence. In coordination right now, it's all human to human. I have to tell somebody what I expect them to do. Next person, I have to tell them again. I have to break down the jobs that I need to get done, and I have to find the people. All of this can be automated. With LinkedIn, we have, for example, a repository of a skilled workforce that we understand what they're good at. We have other people actually approving that, yes, he is good at these and these skills. And I can have machines break down, okay, what are the tasks that need to be done for me to achieve my goal, and who are the actual people that I need for these tasks. And I can have them on a day basis, I can have them on a weekly basis, however needed to achieve that work without ever hiring them and incurring an overhead and a cost that makes my business unscalable. So again, friction is going to get removed. And we only have more and more technologies coming that are actually working on this. So a few of the things that we already work with or have worked with over the past that are very much in that theme are, for example, Slack, that makes our enterprise communication scalable across the world. Obviously, Dropbox for file sharing. You have Upwork and TaskRabbit, and literally from some work, our friends who are making the access to a very distributed workforce way more easy. And then, of course, Ethereum, we have already run a few trials together with Consensus, one of the largest venture builders, to see how smart contracts can be used in our business, which is around creativity, which is, of course, for hiring people, but then also IP protection, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of the friction that you have there is going to go away once these technologies are ready for mainstream. So you already see that in the companies that I founded today. My apologies for this being in German. It was the only version that I found. But I can tell you what you see there. Essentially, newer companies in similar industries and businesses. At the top, you see Uber versus BMW, then Airbnb versus Marriott, et cetera, et cetera. New companies, especially in the technology space, are already making use of this. They are reducing friction. They are removing the need for a full-time workforce. And they are reaching larger market capitalizations. They are scaling faster. They are scaling bigger. And this is only going to get more and more intense. In the next 10 years, with the new technologies that we see coming up, you will have companies that are even smaller that will supersede Facebook, that will supersede Uber, Airbnb, with less and less people, because you need less and less people at the very core. In the end, you need, of course, a very small and trusted amount of people that work together closely, that share the same vision, and that are essential to the business, but everything else impedes scale. And the removal of friction is what allows us to truly achieve scale, because we take away all of the barriers, all of the fixed cost along the way. So in the future, companies, I mean, you already have one-man companies, of course, but there will be more and more one-man companies that are actually able to truly achieve millions, maybe even at some point billions of dollars in revenue by on-the-fly assembling new value chains, contracting people in remote locations, opening up talent pools that right now we still have restricted access to. Yeah, there's so many talented people in Africa and South America, et cetera, where we sometimes, also because of language barriers, just have no access whatsoever. Technology can remove and will remove all of those barriers. And I see that the future of work, by the removal of friction, is going to be more and more in these little, tight-knit communities. I still know and talk to the people that I work with, of course, but they can also organize their own economic activity with other people. I do not need to contract somebody to work for me 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. It is completely unnecessary. They can structure their own day. I only need certain things from them. The rest of their time, please feel free to do whatever you want. Yeah? If you have to take care of your children in the morning, I don't care. You can work for me in the evening when it's convenient for you. This enables flexibility. It enables access to a global workforce. and it creates opportunities for people who at the moment have less opportunities than we do in these large cities. So it is a very democratizing way of scaling business, and technology is helping us to achieve this. Of course, always with the caveat that we do need a certain amount of regulation to make sure that people who don't actually have a lot of bargaining power still get the same opportunity. Obviously, inequality in outcome is unavoidable, and inequality in opportunity is inexcusable as a society. Thank you very much.